Hello and welcome to the channel. I am your host, Travieso Americano. Please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe down below. Do all of those algorithmic-y things that make the channel successful. I would appreciate it. Happy Sunday, everybody. Happy Sunday. It is week 3 of the NFL, so I'm rocking my Broncos hat. Gonna root for them later on. This is gonna be the first episode of the promised Bible prophecy show I've been telling you all about. This is where we're gonna discuss Christian eschatology. And what eschatology means is the study of biblical end times, biblical prophecy, from a building blocks perspective. That means we're gonna start from the ground up. I'm gonna assume everybody knows nothing. And so we're just going to start it that way, and we're going to build up from there week by week and just build up our knowledge. And that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be easily digestible episodes, quick ones with just one or two basic tenets to understand, and then we'll move on. So welcome to episode 1. I am calling this episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Obviously, that's a Star Wars parody title. But there is some reason I'm using it. In the last 50 years, or I'm not 50, but in my lifetime at least, and I've heard in others, that at least in the last 50 years, Bible prophecy hasn't been taught in churches that much. Now, we have seen an uptick lately, so that is very positive, but very few Christians know very much about Bible prophecy, and that's dangerous in my opinion. In the times we're living in, since 1948 especially, and put a pin in that number, we're not going to, or that date I should say, we're not going to talk about 1948 today, but we will. It will be a date we'll continue to go back to. So just be aware of that. Keep it in the back of your mind. We're not going to go into it. There's a lot there, a lot to unpack. Just keep it on top of mind there. But this ignorance of end times and this lack of preaching it has opened up the door for some of the weaker Christians to fall away based on the deceptive practices of our media, of our governments, and that sort of thing that we're seeing out in the secular world today. But it's also weakening the church itself, the corporate body. Pastors preach ad nauseum about the imminence doctrine, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with the imminence doctrine. And for those of you that do not know, the imminence doctrine is the doctrine that states that Jesus can come back in the rapture and rapture his church at any time. That he can come back down to the clouds. He doesn't go all the way down to the ground. He descends to the clouds and he calls his church up into the rapture. And there's questions in Bible prophecy of when that will happen. We won't go into that now. But I feel like it's sometimes the imminence doctrine is almost used as an excuse not to tackle the difficult subject of prophecy, because it is a difficult subject. And God purposefully puts scales on our eyes so we don't understand it all. So I understand why they do that, but I don't think it's good doctrine, and I'll tell you why biblically. Biblically, Matthew 24:14 tells us that before the end times can start, before the tribulation, the gospel has to be preached in every nation on the planet, every nation in the world, and then the end will come. That's what Matthew 24:14 says. Okay, well, with the imminence doctrine, saying that Jesus can come at any time, and of course he can, that's his prerogative, not ours. However, we have to reconcile those two concepts. And to do that, what is the logical outcome? Who is going to be preaching to all the nations to get the world to the point where the end times can start, where the second coming can begin, where the day of the Lord can commence? What is that, And so in terms of this, you have to read it. Who's going to be preaching? You have to read it and understand that's going to be the church. The church is going to be doing the preaching. Now, of course, there could be a miracle. I'm not going to put God in a box and say God can't do it. But the most logical understanding of that text, when you reconcile those two verses together, and those two Bible concepts together, is that the church will be doing the preaching. That's what we were called to do in the New Testament. So it just makes sense that we would be the ones teaching up until the end. We would be the ones preaching to the world so that every nation can have the gospel, and that's when the end times will start. So I do think that the eminence doctrine is used as a crutch at times, not to preach about the end times, because it is so difficult and it is full of problems, and there are lots of mistakes, and God unveils it to us. We have scales on our eyes, as I said prior. So we'll move on from that, but that's something I did want to focus on, just to kind of give you a concept of it. But another problem with that is that by not telling us, by not preaching it, we don't know what's coming, right? We're not ready for the deception that's on its way. And we don't know how long we're going to be around. We don't know if we're going to be raptured at the start of the end times, in the middle. We don't know. There are different theories on that. So this is a dangerous situation. And we're not preaching about the mark of the beast. And that time is coming quickly. So we need to start preaching that as well. We need to get the information out there. We are doing a disservice to Christians and non-Christians alike by not preaching this. All right, I'll get off my soapbox and go back to my pulpit. So in any case, the Bible is about 26.8% prophecy. 28% of that is in the Old Testament. About 21% is in the New Testament. Of that Bible prophecy, roughly 50% is unfulfilled. Don't quote me on that. I got that from a website. I don't know the veracity of it. It seemed pretty legitimate. But in any case, there is a large portion, no matter how we slice it, there is a large portion that is unfulfilled. And so if you take that in mind and you consider 28%, 21%, and the 26.8% of Bible prophecy unfulfilled, if you don't preach on Bible prophecy, if you're not studying that, you're missing almost 15% of the Bible. 15% of the Bible of Bible prophecy that has not yet come to pass. Unfulfilled Bible prophecy, end times Bible prophecy. Okay? So that's very important. That's a huge amount, almost 15%. I think the number's like 13.8. We'll round it to 15. But in any case, today we're going to do a quick study on just 4 definitional words, just to give you a base, like I said, a foundation in this, so that when we move forward, we'll have that vocabulary ready for us. So we are going to teach you the four views of end times held by the Christian church. Personally, I believe the first one is the only biblical one. You can make your decision. That being said, I believe the last one, which will be the preterism, I don't believe that's Christian at all. It's lumped in with Christianity, but I don't really believe it belongs there. But we'll talk about it. So the first 4 types are premillennialism, postmillennialism, amillennialism, and then that preterism that I just talked about. So the first question is, what is millennialism, right? What is that in those words? Millennialism refers to Jesus's 1,000-year reign on earth. So after the end times, there's a 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth. Now, and so the millennials have different concepts of what that means. So a premillennial believes that Jesus will come down after the end times, after the end of Bible prophecy, after Armageddon, will come down and will rule physically on earth for 1,000 years. Now, premillennialists are also often called, I should say, dispensationalism. And what that pretty much means is that we believe in the rapture. Not everyone in the Christian church believes in the rapture. Not everyone believes that Jesus is going to come down in the clouds before his rule on earth and bring up his church sometime before or during the tribulation. Now, one thing I will say about that, Paul preached on the rapture. the harpozo. And I have not yet heard how the amillennialists and the post-millennialists square that, what they do with that, with those Bible verses that Paul talks about. It seems to me that they're ignored. If someone would like to tell me in the comments, I'd love to hear. So let me know down below. So that goes over the premillennialists. So the postmillennialists believe that Jesus will return to earth and reign on earth after the 1,000-year period. So Jesus will give the authority to the church to rule on earth during the 1,000 years. Then he will come down after the 1,000 years is over. And there's more to that. There's more to that story. We'll go into it way down the road. But there's another battle after Jesus' 1,000-year reign where the devil is loosed upon the earth one more time before time and history are completely wrapped up. But that is a long time down the road in terms of our discussion, but we will get there. So that's post-millennialists. And then amillennialists believe that we are already in the 1,000-year reign. So they believe that this is already the 1,000-year reign. They also believe that the number 1,000 for the number of years is symbolic. They square that by saying Revelation, the book of Revelation, the revelation of Jesus Christ is symbolic in nature, so you can be symbolic in that, in your definition of that. I don't believe it. I almost fell back there. I don't believe that. That's not my personal view. Maybe it's yours. And if you'd like to tell me more about that, please feel free to do so. But I don't see this being a world where Jesus is ruling, frankly. I just don't see that being an option. But, people have their beliefs. And then finally, we have preterism. I don't believe this is a Christian belief. I don't believe there's any way to use the Bible and intellectual gymnastics and get to this point, but I'm not to judge is for God and Christ, not for me. So I don't judge. I'm just telling you the information. Preterists believe that all Bible prophecy was wrapped up in AD 70. They claim that Jesus' return happened during that 40-day period when he was on earth prior to him ascending into heaven, on the Mount of Olives, I believe. So that is what they believe. Like I said, the mental gymnastics, intellectual gymnastics, intellectual flip-flops and all that you got to do to get there is difficult in my opinion. But again, I'm not going to be the judge. So that's going to wrap up our first episode here. We'll stop it there. There's so much to go over. This is such a large area of study that we've got to lay this groundwork. I think we've done a great job today. So come back next Sunday. We'll have our next video on this subject. Like, comment, and subscribe down below, please. And I hope you have a great Sunday and enjoy the rest of your weekend.